What is up, duelists? Arts and Crofts here, once again bringing you your daily dose of Yu-Gi-Oh! Goat Format action. Today's feature match, we've got Test ID 69 versus Technolize. As always, both players rated in the top 200 of the Duelingbook Goat Format ladder at the time this match was played. Looks like Technolize is going to start us off here, and they're going to lead off with a classic T-set pass. Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, we've seen Technolize a few times. They do generally like to run Chaos Turbo, so would not be surprised to see that coming out here. And of course, the classic T-set pass is something that Turbo is infamous for, so definitely nothing to disprove that they are on their favorite deck. See how Test ID can follow up, though. They're going to go set a couple back row of their own and pass. All right, both players feeling each other out through the first turn. We're going to flip summon Gravekeeper Spy for Technolize. Interested to see if they go attack position or defense position Spy, depending on how aggressive your hand is. If you have potential more aggressive things in your hand to capitalize on the extra damage, maybe you go attack position and say screw Mirror Force. But if you don't really have much going on besides just the double Spy, maybe you play it a little bit more conservatively. He's going to come out in attack position, so we're getting aggressive here. I do like that generally in a lot of decks. We're going to try and punch in for 24 here, and Test ID will drop down relatively quickly. So good start here for Technolize, getting a lot of damage in and really clocking the opponent. Test ID has an Asura Priest, though, which is the perfect card to mop up these two after the fact, if it can get through. Going to try and clean up the board, but we have Mirror Force to protect the Gravekeeper Spy. So Technolize going for the aggressive play, having the Mirror Force to back it up as well, keeping both of these spies alive for the time being, and that is pretty nice. Now, main deck Asura Priest. Ooh, Test ID is going to chain Royal Decree, though, so we're going to force the Asura Priest through. And this is going to be a very, very pivotal turn, I feel like. The Asura Priest mopping up Technolize's offense here, going up a card, and this Decree sticking on the board, especially game one against likely Chaos Turbo. Decree can just kind of single-handedly win you games often. And it's nice when you have a nice aggressive threat in your hand in terms of this Asura Priest as well, so that you can punish the opponent for their Mirror Forces and Torrential Tributes and things like that getting negated. So textbook Asura plus Decree play here for Test ID. Definitely in the lead from this point onward. Technolize, of course, not out of it just yet, but this Royal Decree likely will put a bit of a wrench into their plans. Yep, Spies will hit the grave. Technolize will take a little bit of damage. And yeah, Test ID definitely pretty happy at this point in time. And just going to pass turn, but sitting behind this Decree, totally fine. Main deck Asura Priest and Decree makes me think that Test ID is on either Chaos Control or Goat Control. Those are kind of the two decks that would play both of those. So might be in for a little bit of a long one here. But Test ID does clearly have a little bit of an aggressive hand, so maybe this won't be a crazy drawn-out control match. Technolize here is going to try and wall up, though, set another monster. Third Spy in the deck would be a nice wall for the Asura Priest if they have it, potentially. Test ID just going to go slam Asura Priest once more. Hits Sinister Serpent. Okay, so this will wall out the Asura Priest indefinitely. Sinister Serpent really good against spirit monsters for exactly this reason, because it'll come back every turn. The player with the spirit monster is forced to use their normal summon every turn to keep it on board if they want. So Test ID is going to need to find, another angle of attack here. Otherwise, it's just going to be stalemate for quite some time. Just passing there, though. Of course, if you are the control player, you can generally be happy to just kind of like sit and stall things out against Turbo a little bit. So it's not the end of the world that you're not making progress. But of course, you're not just going to keep slamming Asura every turn if you can do something else, right? Technolize can re-grab that Sinister Serpent, set another monster pass. Could very well just be the Sinister. And Test ID is not even going to play this game, just going to set a back row pass. I feel like you might as well just run out the Asura just in case it is like a Dekoichi or something. But, not the end of the world. Technolize, just going to set a back row pass, so it makes me think that that is, in fact, that Sinister Serpent, just using it as a wall. When we're going to get end phase Scapegoat here, though, for Test ID. A little bit interesting. I mean, if it is Sinister Serpent, you don't really care about thousandizing it, but it at least will get it off the board for the time being. Interested to see exactly what they plan to follow up the Scapegoat with. I mean, I guess it pairs well with like Creature Swap as well, but if it's just Sinister, you also don't care about that. Top deck Thunder Dragon. Okay, so confirming Test ID is on Chaos Control here. So we might have a classic Chaos Control versus Chaos Turbo matchup for everyone. Typical Goat format action. Getting a couple lights in hand and a light in grave. Not bad. And then we're going to go for the Asura Priest play here. Set a back row. Interested to see exactly, I don't think the Scapegoat really did too much at this point in time. But it was certainly an option, I guess. And at least you don't goat lock yourself because the Asura Priest can just get bounced back. It's going to be Night Assailant. Okay, so we're going to trade Asura Priest for the Night Assailant most likely here. Yep. And so Technolize opting for something other than the Sinister to set. It will just trade 1-for-1 with the Asura Priest. And honestly, the Asura Priest did a lot of good work here. Cleaned up the spies, and then also just traded down the line with Night Assailant. So tons of value out of this card. I definitely think Test ID is still in a really solid position here. Has these GOAT tokens on board for potential metamorphosis or creature swap fodder down the line, which can make it really difficult for Technolize to make any plays unless they have like Tribe Infecting Virus to clear these out easily. So Technolize a little bit backed into a corner. Obviously, neither player making too much progress, but Control is built to win these long, grindy games, so you're going to need to force the issue sooner rather than later if you're Technolize. Thunder Dragon out here for Technolize, yes, so confirming that he's probably just Chaos Turbo. And then they do have the Tribe Infecting Virus, all right, so this is one way to break this board wide open. Pretty easy to do this with Decree on the board, especially if you just use Prio. And we're going to go ahead and discard the Sinister Serpent in hand and clean up the GOAT tokens for free and start beating in for 1,600 a turn with the Tribe. So really nice turn here for Technolize, stealing a little bit of the initiative back. Test ID drops down to 4,000, which is not a very safe life total against a BLS deck, right? Chaos is live as well, so Test ID is going to need to be a little bit play a little bit safe here, which might be difficult when you have Tribe on board to deal with your scapegoats and Royal Decree shutting off all of your potential defensive traps. So a little bit Test ID here. The one card that really kind of picks apart their board was found by Technolize, and Test ID is going to need to figure something out here. Going from a decent position into one where they're just kind of losing, so need to make something happen here. Plenty of cards to make it happen, though. Of course, 2 of them are just Thunder Dragons, though, so the hand isn't as big as it looks. We're going to go Tsukuyomi. That is a nice way to clear out the Tribe and then kind of stabilize. Now, Suk is a little bit dangerous. One thing I've noticed in replays recently, just kind of doing some card eval, is that, especially, I know this isn't a Warrior matchup, right? But Tsukuyomi is a good card against Warrior, right? Because it can beat over monsters like we see here. But when your opponent's capable of pressuring her life points, the fact that the body doesn't stick around is actually sometimes a liability, right? Because you don't have any monster in defense position, especially with Decree on board, you're not really going to have any traps. So your 4,000 life points here is, yeah, sure, you're plussing with the Suk killing the Tribe, and that's all good, but you're not really defending your life points too much, which could be an issue against Technolize's deck, especially with Chaos Live. So we'll see if it comes back to bite them, but they are going to clear out the Tribe at least, which will make any future scapegoats that Test ID plays a lot better, which could very well be worth the fact that you're leaving yourself a little bit open here. Adding another set here as well to represent the potential scapegoat is something I really like. And so nice turn here for Test ID if they can protect their life points. Otherwise, Technolize might be in a solid spot. You can see the double-edged sword here of Royal Decree in a control deck, right? It's good in that it can just like negate traps and all that good stuff and be like kind of free card advantage. And Chaos Control is one of the decks that can afford to play Royal Decree because it naturally just doesn't run a lot of traps. However, sometimes it helps the opponent more than it helps you because you're turning off your own potential Torrential Tributes or Mirror Forces. Even if you're not actually playing them or have them available, Technolize has no reason to play around it right now. And a lot of the value out of Torrential and Mirror Force isn't actually using the card, it's the fear of you using them and it distorting your opponent's plays. So Decree, meaning that being here on the board, means Technolize doesn't really have to do that and can kind of play with Reckless Abandon for the most part, which could very well prove to be rough here for Test ID. Technolize here, yeah, we're going to go Slam Breaker on board. Interested, I mean, like I'm saying, you might not even want to pop the Decree. Maybe you just want to keep it here and try and pop something else and start whittling away at their life points. We're going to get Insta Book of Moon on summon, though, to basically decide for Technolize which card the breaker will be targeting. So this could be a nice little plus in card advantage if Test ID cannot clean up this breaker. Book on breaker is always a little bit of a gambit. You temporarily go minus with the promise of beating over the breaker on your own turn to make up for the card advantage that you just lost. But that doesn't always happen, right? And if we make it to Technolize's turn with the breaker still around, then this is actually just minus in card advantage here for Test ID. Of course, could be worth it if you would prefer to protect your other back row. But in terms of just raw material, this might be a good trade here for Technolize. Which, breaker is one of the best cards in the format at winning material. So not super unexpected, right? And Technolize is going to add another back row. Test ID, lots of cards in hand. Can we clean up the breaker? We're going to go Tsukuyomi and Metamorphosis. So we're going to set Tsukuyomi, activate Metamorphosis. Okay, so this is interesting. I guess the idea is we're getting a Dark Engrave to turn Chaos live, and we get a monster on board to beat over this breaker to recuperate the Book of Moon that we lost. So killing 2 birds with 1 stone here, even though it's a pretty resource-intensive play. But I do like the theory behind it, at least. We'll see if it can resolve, though. Darkfire Dragon hits the board. We're going to summon Chaos Sorcerer as well, so the double threat coming through. Darkfire Dragon can kill the breaker, and Sork can start pressuring the opponent. So Test ID just using Sork here as a beater, saying, you know what? I think, especially being protected by Decree, my Sork will be able to just get a lot of value and control the board, and just using it as a beat stick here to recuperate the fact that they were losing the life point exchange here up to this point. So now kind of equalizing that advantage, stealing board advantage away. And like I said, Decree's a lot better for the aggressor a lot of the time, so I like Test ID. Even though you're playing a control deck, sometimes it is in your advantage to be aggressive, and they're capitalizing on this quite well this turn. This is a lot of damage threatening Technolize as well. Snatch Steal is huge, though. Snatch on the Sork. Test ID, do you have an out? No. So we're just going to go aggressive here for Technolize. Sork will go kill that Darkfire Dragon. This does turn Chaos live again, though. Light and Dark Engrave. But Technolize valuing the damage a little bit more there. So interesting play there. We'll see if the Chaos being live will come back to bite them, or if the damage will matter more. Oh, and then main phase 2, we're going to go Tribute Set for a monster. We do know that Technolize had double Thunder Dragon in hand, so pretty likely it's just a Thunder Dragon here that's set. Pretty much the only monster in the format you really ever see Tribute Set, so not too surprising. Test ID, though, just 1500 defense to get over. Definitely some monsters in the deck that could do that. BLS, of course, being one of those. And yeah, as mentioned, I mean, I guess if your plan was to tribute over the Sork for Thunder Dragon, you might as well get the damage in by killing the Darkfire Dragon, because you would have put a Dark Engrave anyway. So from that perspective, I like Technolize going for the damage. However, instantly punished for putting a Dark Engrave for Test ID. BLS is going to come down, protected by Decree. Ooh, and we got... Well, you don't have... Oh, I guess... Do you have another Thunder Dragon? Yeah, you can just discard Thunder Dragon to get another Light Engrave there. Nice play there. And that is just going to be GG. Yeah, Alpha Strike coming down. You can just go BLS, kill the Thunder Dragon, trigger effect, attack directly, and then Sork for game. So really nice game 1 there for Test ID. Getting a little bit aggressive here. I mean, when you have triple Chaos live, backed up by Royal Decree, definitely makes sense to get aggressive here, despite you being on the control deck. So I like Test ID kind of recognizing a scenario where the normal matchup dynamics are kind of reversed, and playing it really well once they realize that. So nice game 1 there for Test ID. Yeah, switching gears at the opportune time. We will go to game 2. Technolize on their Chaos Turbolist will be able to go first, as they did in game 1, but let's see if they can utilize the advantage a little bit better this time. It's going to go T-set pass here again. So once again, not opening any Trinity. Could be nice for Test ID if they have some of their own. But we shall see. Breaker going to come down. Okay. So a lot of players will play around early Breaker by like setting a chainable, but we'll see if Technolize did. Going to pop a Dust Tornado. Okay, so Breaker getting the value here. Yeah, I mean, I guess post-side, Turbo will sometimes side in things like Dust Tornado and Torrential Tribute if they're not maining it, like other unchainables that aren't in the deck pre-side often. So turn 1 Breaker is a lot better in games 2 and 3 against Turbo than it would be in game 1, where it's probably just like a ring or a jar greed or something like that. But Breaker here getting some good value, probably going to crash into the set monster as well. It is Gravekeeper Spy though, so just flipping it face up, Technolize will be able to resolve the Spy, which gets a lot of stats on the board, but still a little bit of a stalemate here, which does favor Test ID, especially since they are up, a little bit from the Breaker pop. We're going to get main phase 2 Thunder Dragon here out of Test ID, thinning the deck just a little bit. Not bad. And just going to pass turn. So not particularly strong openings from either player, and we're just kind of nice and stalemated here. We'll see if Technolize can break through, though. They have Thunder Dragon of their own. Must have drawn that for turn. So both players have Light and Grave halfway to Chaos. Tsukuyomi is going to come down. Okay, so this is really nice for Technolize. No back row here, so this is very safe. Suk flip down the Breaker, kill it, and then one or both of the Spies can get in for damage, which you, of course, really want to do against a control deck. Any damage you can steal is really strong. And dealing 24 here early on is very, very nice to put Test ID on the back foot. Back row here to potentially protect them as well. Breaker's gone, so any back row is a little bit safer. Test ID has a Sura Priest here again, though, to go for it. We'll see if Technolize has the Mirror Force. There's no Decree potentially out of Test ID to protect their Sura Priest from a Mirror Force, but would be interesting to see if history repeats itself. It's Raigeki Break. Okay, so Technolize having to pitch one of those Thunder Dragons that are in hand to protect their Spies. Once again, a Sura Priest doing a good job at least pressuring Technolize and forcing a bit of material concession. The first discard, of course, is free after you Thunder Dragon. But now they just will have the one left. And, Raigeki Break is one of the best outs in the deck to stuff like Thousand Eyes Restrict, which we know Test ID is running. So eating Raigeki Break here is totally fine, I think, if you're Test ID. However, this does mean they don't have any monsters on the board at this turn to get in the way of these potential Spies for Technolize to continue to apply pressure. So it might be a little bit risky. You can take, a hit or two from these Spies before being in complete Jeopardy mode, but you can see, sometimes these Spirit Monsters don't do a great job on the defense. Ooh, okay, and Test ID recognizing that, I probably need to get a monster on board, so we're going to go and summon out a Chaos. We're going to go Chaos Sorcerer here, summoning it in defense to prevent any crashes to turn Chaos on for Technolize, of course. We can go banish a Spy and then threaten to banish the second one next turn. So I like this play from Test ID. You're not getting really a full card's worth of value from this sort because you're just dealing with half the Spy. But especially when the alternative is you have no monster on the board, and we don't think Test ID really has too much back row here as well. You need something here to protect your life points from the double Spy onslaught. So I definitely like this play. Now, their hand might not be that amazing, and if Technolize can answer this Sork, they might be in a very good spot. But based on what we know about Test ID's hand so far, I think this is kind of forced here just to get something in the way of the opponent. Yeah, no back row here, so Sork was the only defensive option available to them. Technolize Snatch Seal would go insane. Tsukuyomi plus Knock is good. Oh, we're going to go Suk onto the Spy, so Technolize likely running the third copy of Spy here. And we're just going to pass. Okay, so this is actually a really nice play here out of Test ID. Or it ended up being pretty nice because Technolize has no answer to this Sork just yet, so it's going to stick around and continue to get value. And anytime a Chaos player is able to have their Sork or their VLS stick around for multiple turns, it becomes very, very difficult for the opponent to come back into the game because they just generate advantage or pressure, dealing tons of damage turn after turn. And Technolize, the best they could do was play around the Sork Banish by turning their Spy back to defense. But this does make it, vulnerable to a Mind Control or Nobleman of Crossout. Sork, of course, can just beat over the Spy if they really wanted to. That would turn Chaos on them. So this could be interesting, depending on if Test ID wants to test fate, no pun intended, by putting a Dark Engrave, or if they would rather wait for a little bit safer of an answer to the Spy that's set here. Pivotal turn here, I think, though. See what they have. Top deck Nobleman, or that was just there the whole time for a while. Knock here on the Sork, or on the Spy, is actually insane. Test ID doesn't have any in their deck. I do believe that they were running a couple, maybe. But maybe not necessarily. Technolize has the third copy, of course, and now Sort can just start beating in, plus DD Warrior Lady to add an even bigger clock. And Test ID here, once again, I mean, clearly has a pretty monster-heavy hand from what we can surmise, and really taking it to Technolize as the aggressor here in both games, which is pretty cool to see. Gonna drop them down to 57 plus 15, so this is a lot of damage coming through. Um, and Technolize is going to be under a lot of pressure here once again. Still no back row to protect it, though, but we saw Technolize didn't have an answer to the Sork last turn, so they're going to need to top deck something. Just going to set a monster and a back row. Okay. I wonder if you think this is real or not, if you're Test ID. Definitely not guaranteed. We're going to try and play around Mirror Force here, though. Ooh, and we're going to go set Sinister Serpent, activate Metamorphosis to summon out a Thousand Eyes Restrict, so that we can potentially steal the set monster away. I guess this is a good way of removing your monster if you don't want to potentially play into like Mirror Force or things like that. But it does get kind of owned by Torrential Tribute. So if Technolize has that, Test ID could be in a pretty bad spot. And we're going to steal a Dekoichi, though. Okay, so that's pretty nice. Now, this is a bit of a stalemate situation because this is a 0 attack point Thousand Eyes restrict. But if Test ID has like Tsukuyomi, or they can always go Tribute Summon for Thunder Dragon next turn to remove it and break the Floodgate. But answering the Dekoichi, I guess, is nice there. I wonder if you had to go for this meta play, or if you could have just continued to apply the pressure. So Test ID obviously going full steam ahead with all of these monsters last turn, using the knock to remove and then get some damage in. But now very much worried about what this back row is, and so playing it very conservatively. Now, I wonder if this was, I guess my point is, was this entirely necessary? I feel like there's a world where Technolize is just bluff setting something because they didn't have an out to Sork at any point earlier, so they probably would want to represent a threat here. And Test ID didn't need to go. Like, there wasn't any faith for Trinity available to Technolize, so the set monster wasn't the scariest one. So Test ID kind of pumping the brakes a little bit here. Might end up being the right play, but we'll see if Technolize can kind of stabilize from here. In which case, Test ID's decision might not have been the best one. Technolize going to go set another monster here. Okay. And now things are getting a little dicey, right? Because even if you break your Thousand Eyes Floodgate by tributing over it, you're still in a similar position as you were previously, with another monster on the board that you haven't been able to deal with. You can at least re-grab the Sinister here. Okay, so Test ID must have had the Tsukuyomi in hand to go for this play to reset the Thousand Eyes. And also, you can just set it face down to break the Floodgate effect if you so want. My guess is we'll just see Suk flip-flop the Thousand Eyes, suck in the other set monster, and then set up for more damage next turn. So this is really interesting, actually. Test ID really switching between both gears of the deck very deftly here in game 2. They found an opening with no back row and an easily outed monster with knock to start applying the pressure. This forces Technolize to commit stuff to the board that then you can, suck up with the Thousand Eye Tsukuyomi combo. So you basically force Technolize into defensive posturing that then you can outgrind them from with the other half of your combo. And this, you can really see the ceiling of Chaos Control here in this match, where on the one hand you can get really aggressive and dominate the board with your Chaos monsters, and then if your opponent, makes it a little bit awkward for that half of the deck, well, suddenly you just have, Scapegoat, Metamorphosis, Thousand Eyes, Tsukuyomi stuff going on, and it's really hard for decks to deal with both simultaneously. So Test ID in a really, really nice spot here. But the thing is, if Technolize is able to, if they have, Ring for the Thousand Eyes or something, which they probably would have done last turn, you've already basically tested for Ring, and you've tested for Torrential Tribute. So the only real back row that this could possibly be is probably just Mirror Force, is my thought. Or like MST or Dust Tornado or something. Although Turbolists generally aren't playing multiple Dust Tornado. So I feel like the back row has to be Mirror Force or like MST or like a Pro Set Heavy Storm or something. So be interested to see how Test ID plays this out exactly. But they're really pulling Technolize in multiple directions here right now and really dictating the terms of the game and it's looking really good for them at this point in time. Yeah, we can suck in this other set. It is a Sangan, which is not the end of the world for Technolize that it got sucked in. But still, Test ID at least removing any potential threats from Technolize's side of the board. Adding a back row here as well. You want to be prepared for if you go for a similar play next turn and the Sangan hits the grave and Technolize gets a search. They could go for Tsukuyomi of their own, which could make things kind of awkward. Or I guess we know there's Tsukuyomi in hand already anyway. Oh wait, yeah. So that's kind of interesting. We know Technolize has Tsukuyomi in hand, so they went for a couple turns of setting monsters. Or I guess last turn was the only one where they knew the Thousand Eyes was coming in, so they went for set Sangan instead of Tsukuyomi to try and kill the Thousand Eyes when there was no back row. Now, I guess the issue here, like I mentioned before, is Suk isn't a defensive monster on its own, and if you actually pop Test ID's Thousand Eyes, removing the Floodgate effect, then suddenly Sork and DD Warrior Lady are still beating down on you, which lends credence to my theory that this back row isn't real, probably, because otherwise that Suk plays a lot safer. But the other side of that is Technolize is probably less likely to set something real there because they were fine with letting Test ID keep the Thousand Eyes around, risking the fact that Test ID might have Tsukuyomi, right? So this set monster that got sucked in was pretty likely to be a bluff, I guess, is my thought. I think it's still fine for Test ID to suck it in and slowly kind of grind away here, but definitely a likely outcome that this was the case. And yeah, I just don't feel like the back row is real, I guess is my point here. Technolize here, still in a decent spot. Yeah, their Tsukuyomi is going to come down. They do have a potential back row here to worry about. And triggering their own Sangan, which is actually pretty nice. They can go grab Night Assailant. That's interesting. Okay, so maybe their set is like a Raigeki break. And they want to get some discard fodder for it, potentially. That could be interesting. Suk is going to try and kill the Thousand Eyes. That will be allowed. Turning Chaos on, notably, if Test ID has another Sork or BLS in hand. And now, once, like I was just mentioning, we get into this scenario where Technolize is going to have no monsters on board. Unless they have Chaos of their own. And Test ID is going to have these big aggressive monsters here to push in. So, could be a little bit dicey. They're going to add another back row here, so maybe finding an actual out to this aggression. And now I feel like you need to... You're kind of at the point where you need to respect some of these back row at this point now, because it's been a couple turns. And Technolize went for the, floodgate opening play the same turn that they set a new back row, which makes you think that it could very well be an actual out here. Test ID top deck's Pot of Greed, though, so that's a pretty nice addition to the portfolio. Into Graceful, that's insane. Sure. Discard Serpent TD. Insane turn here for Test ID. Has Chaos Live as well. Has a couple back row to play around, but like Heavy Storm could make this pretty quick. Okay, we're gonna choose to play into Mirror Force. Interesting. I mean, Test ID could have like set Book of Moon. We do know that they are running Book, at least in the main deck. So Mirror Force not as big of a threat potentially if that is gonna come through here. Also, it could be Royal Decree. Also, the Test ID is on a Decree deck, so maybe we don't even care about Mirror Force. Okay, so this set was Raigeki Break the whole time. So interesting that they chose not to Raigeki Break. Oh yeah, so I guess they chose to not Raigeki Break the Thousand Eyes when it first hit the board because then they wouldn't have had any outs to the aggression here. So once again, Test ID pulling in both directions at the same time, proving very fruitful because it allowed, they were able to get a turn and like a half of value out of their Thousand Eyes, even though Technolize had an out to it, because they couldn't afford to use it at that point in time. Now they have the Night Assailant in hand, and this Raigeki Break is going to get some value. Chain Decree would be absolutely backbreaking here, but it's not going to come through. We're going to Raigeki Break, discard Serpent, pop that Sork, but DD War Lady is going to stick around to still get some damage in. So Test ID continuing, slowly but surely applying the pressure here. So it's their normal summon, not going to use it, and just going to pass with just the DD War Lady in the back row. Kind of an underwhelming turn for a time when you went pot plus graceful, but maybe just so secure in their lead at this point that they don't really care too much. Technoli's not out of it just yet, though. DD Warrior Lady is a 2-turn clock, but you have plenty of cards in hand to make something happen. Only one of them is a Thunder Dragon as well, so a lot of real stuff in there. Can regrab the Serpent as well. So we know the hand is TD, Serp, a Knight Assailant, and then I think 3 unknowns, if I was keeping track correctly. Jar of Greed here to dig even further. So they are seeing a lot of stuff in their deck. Snatch Steal on the DD Warrior Lady is definitely real. Sorry, I've looked at that back row. But it is what it is. And we're just going to find out immediately anyway. It's going to be Book of Moon to force the Snatch Steal to fizzle. DD Warrior Lady will get turned into face-down defense position, which is totally fine. It is a very self-sufficient monster, and the only thing Technolize can do is just set a monster. Okay. So Test ID, if you have Knock or Mindcon, you could set up for something really big here. Interested to see what's going to happen. Regrab that Serp, of course. We're just going to go set a back row, set a monster. I guess in case there's like Morphing Jar, you would want to do this. I feel like we wouldn't want to set stuff ahead of time because there is a non-zero chance that this set monster is the Knight Assailant that we know about. Right, so you wouldn't want to give Technolize an extra potential target. Unless this is some crazy mind game, but I feel like it's not really worth it. Let's see what the set is. DD War Lady is going to attack in. Looks like we might have some disconnection issues. Yeah, so DD War Lady is going to attack the set. It is the Knight Assailant, and Technolize is going to pop the set monster, which was sinister. Okay, so Test ID playing some crazy mind game there. And honestly, maybe Technolize not realizing the order in which this happened. Because they got disconnected, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. But like both players know that this set is decently likely to be Knight Assailant. So why would Test ID ever set something ahead of time unless it was guaranteed to be something that they would be fine getting hit with the Knight Assailant? You know what I mean? So Test ID being a little bit cheeky there, but it's gonna work out, and they just get a nice free +1 there. No damage dealt, but DD War Lady is still applying a lot of pressure. Kind of funny there. Yeah, is what it is. Yeah, and there's no reason not to kill the DD Warrior Lady because there's already Lights and Graves, so there's no chaos to worry about. Well, there is chaos to worry about, but you already had to worry about it, right? Technolize here, still with a nice full grip of cards. So the only thing we know in hand is Serp TD at this point. Yeah, baited there. Funny. Okay, we're going to get normal summon Tribe. Tribe, discard probably the Serpent. Call Warrior, kill the DD Warrior Lady. So that is a nice plus here for Technolize. And, Test ID is actually relatively low on life. 5k here isn't super duper secure, so a couple hits from Tribe could be a little scary. Gonna get in for 16. Test ID will drop down to 3,400, so both players pretty low here. Technolize gonna add a back row. Test ID up 1,000,000 cards at this point in time. But, you do need to respect the potential, alpha strike potential of the turbo list, especially with multiple chaos potentially being live, heavy storm not being used yet. So Test ID does need to proceed a little bit carefully here, despite their pretty solid advantage at this point. Heavy Storm's going to come out here. Okay, so is this just going to be game? Going to kill a ring and your own scapegoat. That is totally fine. Show me Snatch Steal plus a monster. Snatch Steal plus a monster, and there you have it. 2-0. Test ID on Chaos Control, taking it down against Technolize's Chaos Turbo. And I feel like this was a very, very well played from Test ID, really just pulling Technolize in every different direction, recognizing when it is correct to go aggressive with the deck, even kind of counter to normal matchup dynamics. And so this was a really, really cool one to watch, just to see them really kind of flip between aggression and defense at various times in both games. Game 1, they really found an opportunity to just put the pedal to the metal and wipe out Technolize very, very quickly with a bunch of Chaos monsters. Game 2, though, they pushed for aggression when it was safe. Then when Technolize put up the shields, they started playing more of the grind game, and then whittled down Technolize to go for a second wave of aggression to finish off the match. And that was very, very well played. I enjoyed this one. I hope you guys did as well. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I will catch you all next time.